Well, let's begin this informal but wonderful discussion we're going to have with Mark Peterson. This event is part of our Theodore Scheinflug lecture series, which we have 4 or 5 such events every semester. And if you go to our website, they're all listed there, and we put out social media. And anybody wants to send us their email, we'll make sure you get into our network more formally. There seem to be a lot of people here that haven't come to these events before. We try to cover the full scope of the photographic lens and screen arts still in moving practice. We don't make much separation between anything that's done through the lens with the screen or the computer. And our students, graduate students, are people who practice such. And I've been wanting to get Mark here for a number of years. And this year, I think, is probably the most timely possible time to have him, giving his extensive coverage of everything that has been relevant to all of our lives throughout the last 4 years of political turmoil and now the COVID issue. And now that we have a little light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and looking forward to warmer weather and regathering in normal circumstances and a new president and many other things that are looking better, it's maybe great to reflect back on the years that have passed that we sort of regret. I think Mark is one of the most exceptional photographers working today. I don't really know how to categorize him because I don't like categories in this field. I don't like these terms, you know, documentary photographer, conceptual photographer, fine art photographer, journalist, installation artist, whatever. I don't think any of them really quite work. And I think all good photography is basically conceptual, irrespective of how it's made, and maybe the conception comes in the course of editing or whatever. The good photography is driven by sensitive, thoughtful, and energetic people who want to say something of meaning to the world and to the world at large. And Mark is one of those people who crosses the boundaries of labels. If anything, he falls in the label of, I was thinking about George Gross. I was thinking about, you know, a lot of political caricature artists who worked throughout the history of art making. He relates to a lot of photographers that have been part and parcel of our community, not only people working as freelancers and editorial and such, but people who are working so-called as fine art photographers, whatever that really means. All of you know that he is an award-winning photographer who has a W.G. Gene Smith Award. He is celebrated everywhere that his images appear, from the New York Times to Time to the New Yorker. I don't think there's a magazine or journal or online zine or online site that doesn't reflect work about Mark Peterson and of his engagement with the events and people and traumas of our time. Mark, welcome. I'm going to just move a little bit to the share my screen. Everybody, we are did everybody see it? I hope. Oops, one.
Yep. Yep.
Great. I'm going to turn towards it. As we go through this, we're going to go through 3 bodies of work. His work on charity events, a pretty scathing look at a certain class of people. And then we're going to look at his political theater work, which reflects much of the last 4 years. And then lastly, work I think that's been produced over just the last year. Is that right, Mark?
Well, the political theater was from 2013 to 2016. And then the white noise, which is the more recent work, was at 2017 to basically present.
Tell us a little bit, this just is I need that paper. I don't know if you can see me on the other screen. This is New York Times. You can see this is what it looked like, something I saved because it was after a most momentous week. And I think there's hardly anybody who hasn't seen these pictures, which so well describe the events of January 6th and post and before. And it's almost the whole spread of the Sunday Review. There's a big, is Mark's. And there's a reason that they're there, because I think Mark has to engage with all kinds of other photographers everywhere he goes, but somehow has found the way to make the atypical rendition of what happened by either giving closer or moving further away and getting away from the gaggle of photographers that usually are somehow connected in a web in these kinds of events. Could you describe that a little bit, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, this day was January 6th. It was very surreal. I can't say that I expected it to happen as it did. I expected if there was going to be violence, that it would happen at night, which had happened at the 2 rallies before this, where hundreds of Proud Boys and other people stormed through the streets and beat up anybody they thought was a communist or, liberal or BLM person. And so, yeah, it was a very surreal day. The people, I can only describe them as being hypnotized as they marched through the streets and into the Capitol and just, wandered about waiting for their fearless leader to show up.
I'll go on. This is going back to 2000, before 2004, I guess. The book that was published then, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I started this in maybe 1992, this work.
What drove you to these kinds of events, to conceptualizing this project called Acts of Charity, which looks pretty seriously at charity events by very wealthy people? The book, by the way, has a number of wonderful quotes from people about the rich, about what charities are, and also statistics in the back about how money is given and where it's given by who and percentages, which is pretty telling.
Yeah. Well, first, Charles, I'd like to thank you for letting me be part of this lecture series, and SVA, thank you so much. And I'd also like to acknowledge Marcel Saba and Jean Saba and everybody at Redux who have helped me work all these years. I've been very lucky to be with Marcel. This work was created with the help of Marcel Saba. But initially, I got an assignment from the New York Times Magazine to go and photograph Brooke Astor. And this was recently within 3 or 4 years of me moving to New York. And I had never seen this level of richness, this level of, people who were willing to show how rich they were wherever they were. And I spent a couple days with Brooke Astor, who was the head of New York
I'm
Society.
going to show people that picture. It's here
Um,
further on, I guess. Huh?
yeah, it's her.
Did I pass it?
Yeah. But yeah, I went with her as she donated money to East Harlem Elementary School. She gave them $5,000 or $10,000, I forget which it was, for books. That was her big thing, was literacy. And she arrived in a full Chanel outfit with pearls and gloves up to her elbows, to a school. I mean, she could have landed from Mars when she walked in the door, because, you know, she obviously was going to go to a high society luncheon afterwards. So she was dressed like that, but it was just totally surreal. And so I, you know, wanted to see what this was. It was like a tribe that I had never seen, you know, and, you know, so I just started following, you know, different parties, different experiences. I was very lucky that different editors gave me assignments to get me in, because, you know, otherwise I wouldn't be allowed in there. But yeah, I spent quite a long time to you know, get all the different kinds of pictures and levels of partying that I was photographing.
I believe this is her in her limousine. If you look at me, you also.
That was the first day I spent with her, and the limo driver requested that picture from me. Because he said, that's what I see every day. And then when I came to bring him the picture, I saw him sitting in a car outside her building, and I knocked on the window, and for 5 minutes, he wouldn't roll down the window because he was worried I was going to ask him for money or something. So, but he appreciated the picture in the end. So
who's the couple that's up now?
well, that was, you know, Donald Trump before he became president, with Ivanka before she became a model. So this would have been like maybe 96, something like that, 94, somewhere in there. And this was out on Long Island at a polo match that a lot of celebrities would go to, and you know, the whole point was in being seen. And there were great society photographers like Bill Cunningham who would take their picture, and it was important to make it into the paper. So
different than Bill Cunningham and different from Slim Aarons or someone like that, you somehow get a kind of intimacy that is very personal and caricature, but kind in many ways, or just getting at the essential elements, like in this picture, the bags, the clothes. You bend, as we used to say, you bend your knees, which a lot of photographers don't do, and you tend to look up, you tend to look down. How did you develop this style, this intentionality that you clearly weren't there to celebrate them, but rather to I won't say expose them, but rather to document what you felt, I think. Were you conscious of moving into a very distinct kind of style, and where did that come from? How did you formulate that? This kind of close-up intimacy at the same time?
Well, you know, I'm a great admirer of Larry Fink and Jeff Jacobson, two great American photographers. And so I, of course, studied their work. I could never make pictures as great as they do. So I had to find my own approach, you know, to things apart from them. But, you know, they showed a road you can walk down, you know, using flash and, you know, using an editorial judgment when you take a picture. And so they were great teachers in that way, you know, looking at their work. You know, a lot when I came to New York, I had shot black and white before mostly. So it was important to learn how to use a flash, how to make pictures, you know, on chrome, because that's what you had to do for magazines. And, you know, I don't know, I've always liked low angles because I use a very wide lens. So a lot of times the lower you go, you can take out some of the chaos that would be in there otherwise, you know.
I think that's a good word. I think the word chaos that you take out while depicting sometimes chaos, which is seen in a lot of the later black and white pictures of our recent times.
Yeah. I just remember these guys stepping on me most of the time while I was taking their picture.
So that raises the question, how do you feel that you were received in this kind of environment where you think they knew the degree to which you were recording them and in a kind of critical way?
Well, I think a lot of these people are very used to being photographed. They want to be photographed. They dress to be photographed at these events. When they walk in and the photographers don't take their picture, there's shock on their face. Mm-hmm. So, but, you know, beyond that, I wouldn't dress in a suit or, you know, try and blend in. I would, you know, just dress like I normally do, which is very casual. So I assume they never thought I was part of that class or that, you know, society group. And, you know, in some ways, I think that allowed me to move through and not be as noticed, maybe in a way. You know, my casualness was almost more disarming. But, you know, I mean, I think for so many people that are used to being photographed, you know, like a flash, like that moment, you know, it's like crack to them. You know, yeah. It's important that they get photographed in these events. You know, and I mean, it's a lot of these events, there are 20 or 30 people at them, photographers, yeah. You know.
So they're not being selective, but you must in some ways stand out from that, you know, the photographers who are there to put them into society magazine, so to speak, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that last picture was in the bathroom, the ladies' bathroom of the plaza. And the debutantes who were snuck in there, the debutantes from Europe who snuck in there to have a cigarette. And, you know, I followed Karen Cunningham, who's a great photographer, into that restroom and photographed that. And for whatever reason, they were just kind of blasé about us doing that, you know? And I think, you know, part of it was, you know, I mean, there's the entrance shot that most photographers go for, you know, where you get the full length fashion shot and that. And I was always looking more for a shot, you know, by the mummies or wherever, you know, in the bathrooms, you know.
Well, that's what distinguishes you, I think, and a kind of honesty within the pictures of what a particular clique of people are about. And I mean, the big point that the book makes, which isn't totally knowable on the screen, is the comparison of what these events cost and how they have to be staged in order to raise money. And you know, the cost of some of these events often, and I have photographed some myself, often cost more than what they raise. And
They cost much more.
and it's kind of
Yeah.
and if you're not seen there, you know, and if you are invited, then you have the right to invite somebody to your event and ask them for money. And
Yeah.
so it's a sort of a one-upsmanship game, but so much of it goes into the production of the event.
Yeah, I mean, before COVID, you know, 5 or 6 nights of every week, people were eating and drinking and dancing, you know, and wearing, you know, designer clothing in the name of the poor or homeless or, you know, illiterate. And, you know, I mean, that's what I was trying to look at is, as a society, do we want to give tax breaks to this group of people rather than tax them and put the money in an equitable way to help, you know, to have a real safety net?
Well, I think that that's certainly the essence of these pictures and the book. And I'm sure it's available. It's not out of print, is it?
No, you can.
So I urge everybody, I think
price now.
I did, when I picked it up, I have to confess, at Strand, shortly after it came out. I just thought it was the best book
You're
on
too
this
kind.
contemporary party social eliteness that I had seen for a long time. And truly a great book that we don't today know much about in relation to Mark's other pictures. And, you know, there haven't really been many photographers who have photographed the wealthy and the rich. You know, there's certainly Walcott from the FSA. There are some, but the numbers are very small, and usually it's done in a glamorous way rather than the expose way. Seeing how we actually know very little about how the rich really live. At least ordinary people know very little. And I think it's an expose that is very strong and very timely and living and will continue to live. Now I'd like to take us to the political theater. This is something, the theater of our contemporary politics is something we all been watching too much of. And I'm sure that we have positions of angst about it. And these pictures in many ways are the essence, and I think the lasting statement in many ways about the time we have just undergone. Even though these were taken, as he said, from 2013, you said, right?
Yeah.
Up to 16.
Yeah.
Maybe this is how we got there. These pictures, you get in even closer. In some cases, I think you're using a long lens. In some cases, I think you're right there with a wide angle lens. Could you describe a little bit about your methodology, or is that asking too much?
No. First of all, yeah, I'd like to thank Gerhard Steidl for publishing this book. Steidl published it in 2016, right at the end of the election. And I was very fortunate that he saw it to be valid work and published it. And also I'd like to thank Amy Pereira, who ran the MSNBC photography site, who supported so much of this work. I was very lucky to get her support with this work. But how this work started was I went to an event at the Capitol. It was run by the Tea Party, which was, you know, very active at that time. And they were trying to stop the Affordable Care Act. It was in 2013. It was right before the government shut down. And I photographed a bunch of senators and Congress people walking out of the Capitol onto a stage and giving the equivalent of a soundbite, and then going back into the Capitol. And the whole purpose of the rally had nothing to do with drumming up support or anything. It was just to get your face on TV with this soundbite. And after I photographed it, I looked at my pictures and I didn't feel that they captured how fake the event really was. So, I mean, it was really a TV studio set up with a cheering crowd, and, you know, the, you know, announcers were the Congress people. And so I decided I wanted to, you know, make the pictures more dramatic, more concise, and show the whole kind of political theater aspect of politics. I've shot politics since 1984 was my first presidential, you know, election that I covered. So I've shot it, you know, in a very editorial, you know, restrained way. So, you know, maybe I was ready to change. But the first thing I did was, the cover of the book is Chris Christie. And he was the front runner at this point in the election. Donald Trump hadn't entered the election yet. And Christie, the thing about Chris Christie is he's a very belligerent person. When somebody at a town hall would ask him a question about, you know, money for education or whatever, he would walk over and just start yelling at the person and tell them they're wrong, and that there's something wrong about, you know, perhaps their whole lives and what they thought. And so the first event I went, when I wanted to try and shoot things different, was him. And literally I got pushed up very close to him. So this shot is almost full frame with a 24 millimeter. And he's literally yelling at somebody, you know, just to the right of me. And what I did then was, after I shot it, I went and I spent a lot of money, maybe $5 on iPhone apps, and just started processing the pictures through that to get the look I wanted. And I've always been influenced greatly by movies. Citizen Kane is one of my favorite movies. The depth of field, the high shadows, high contrast. And there's also a moment in that movie where Foster Kane runs for governor. And it's an incredible sequence, but just the imagery and the Dutch angles and that, you know, I've always loved that. And so that's a lot of what I tried to recreate in the pictures, while still being true to the actual moment really being there. You know, I'm not taking things out of the picture. I'm not, you know, putting things in pictures. All of these are real moments. I'm just accenting it with the shadowing and the flash.
Well, it's very effective, and it's like, in some ways, these people become bigger in life, wax-like figures, this one in particular. And
He was so happy to be photographed.
I can see it. I just was going to ask, now that your work is so prominently published throughout all the major journals, that whether you're on the left or the right, you have to read them. Do these now political people recognize you? Do they know what you're going to do? Do they have a sense of your exposure is going to come out, how their exposure is going to come out, as in, say, this one of Hillary?
I'm not sure. I don't know. You know, I've never had anybody say, you know, anything directly that they didn't want me there because of my pictures. So I don't know, but I'm sure these people are very smart. They're very conscious of their image. They spend days and weeks cultivating their image, you know, for one event. So, you know, I assume they saw some of the pictures.
Well, you can bet they saw them.
I know, you know, Donald Trump saw this one. It was image like this was on the cover of Time, and I know that they liked that, or he liked that. You know, at least his campaign manager told me that, you know, at some point.
I guess the old mantra: any good press, good or bad, any press, good or bad, is worth having.
Well, that was Trump's motto for
Yeah.
sure, because, you know, he is a disciple of Roy Cohn, you know, so. This was a Second Amendment rally just outside of Washington, D.C. And I saw the bathroom. I thought, boy, if anybody goes in there with the AR-15s, I'm going to go in there and take a picture. and they did, you know, so.
Did they react or no? They didn't.
After about the third frame, the guy in the middle said, "Is somebody taking our picture?" And at that point, I thought it was time to leave. So
yeah,
I had what I could get there.
You're a pretty big guy, but you're no match for those two guns.
Yeah. This is Trump being Trump, you know.
Now, are you close? Are you longer?
Yeah, I'm close. I'm 3 feet, 4 feet away from him here.
I'm asking this kind of question for students, by and large. Photographers often don't like to talk about their methodology or their equipment or the kind of details, but many students always ask me, well, how did you get there? How did you get this vantage point above this crowd? And I think that's one of the things that separates you. Your vantage point sort of is different and separate from the gaggle. This is the perfect picture of the gaggle of photographers. Obviously, you're up high on a balcony or something. And that's what I think it's almost like you're a bystander to the event. At the same time, you're right in the middle of it. And you capture the nature of the event as much as the nature of the person being photographed, who you know is in an event.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could be as brilliant as you just described me, but this was more, I was out of position and missed when he first came in. So the only thing I could do was go up and shoot, which was the better picture.
Yeah.
So often in these situations, you know, you just got to keep moving and looking for something different and not get trapped into the same thing. You know, here again, you know, the Trump picture, you know, I thought about that picture for a while, because whenever he got in a car, people would always, you know, go right up to the window to try and photograph him. And I knew if I slid the flash in between the door and you know, flashed it inside, I could make this silhouette. And so, you know, luckily it worked. Luckily he didn't
Yeah.
close the door on my hand, you know. So it's just, you know, thinking and being lucky, or accidents. Accidents are some of the best things that can happen to you.
Well, this picture shows the whole method, the camera, the photographer,
Yeah.
and the target.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And this, you know, Ted Cruz, I really wanted to make a picture of him looking like a preacher, Elmer Gantry like, that his father was a preacher. Cruz, when he gives his stump speech, it's very much like being in a church where he leads you down the path of damnation and then, you know, gives you salvation at the end. And so I really, you know, wanted to make a picture that looked like that.
Well, it works perfectly in terms of your intention, but it is the purely theatrical picture in a sense of a guy who's a bad actor, no pun intended. But it also speaks to Citizen Kane and to the kind of lighting and the caricature that was made of the character in Citizen Kane. It's a wonderful picture, and I think, you know, he's looking a little skinny there. He's gotten a little fatter, but another incredible picture of the nature of guns in our society. One which I have prized because, you know, of Kathy Shore's shot, We the People.
Great work. He's done great work on it.
And we're still trying to keep that momentum up. And this is a picture I took her out some time ago when I saw it to show the kind of ridiculous handling of our children in terms of their exposure to guns.
This was at the NRA convention, and yeah, so yeah, it's a complicated picture.
Yeah.
In all of its meanings, and you know, Sarah Palin, you know, at this point she was kind of the leader of the fringe of the Republican Party, you know, before Trump really got in. This was at an event, I think, where the government had closed down, and they closed down some of the monuments, and people went there and removed the barriers. And Cruz showed up, a bunch of other people, you know, to demand that they be open. Again, I'm being very editorial with Jeb Bush, who couldn't seem to get out of his own way, out of his own shadow.
Literally and figuratively. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, he was the chosen one in the Bush family, and it just never worked out for him. Secret Service guarding Donald Trump by his hotel before he became president. Rubio waiting to go on stage.
Oof. So I think that's Trump again. There he is
That's
again.
Trump.
Oh boy.
This, I mean, I don't know how many speeches I watched him make that face, and I just had to, you know, luckily at the beginning of the campaign, you could get very close, and I just wanted to really show, you know, what he looked like.
I mean, again, there's so many of your pictures that remind me of George Gross and other German caricature artists pre-war who, and it's just, I can't help but see that in these pictures. I don't know how familiar you are with those particular artists, but I think that these pictures, as history moves on, will live as the statement, as a visual statement of the times and of what I would consider, I don't know if everybody in the audience, the evil that begot us through a number of these characters, and
So,
the political system itself.
this, that sign says Hillary. And I don't know, for somehow it got cropped like that, you know, in my camera when I took the picture.
Wow.
Um, I you know, I have a long, well, I've photographed Hillary since 1991, so
Wow.
for a long time. And this is the Capitol under construction. That was the back of the book.
Now, it seems to me I saw a similar picture recently. I think you've gone back to that puddle over and over again.
Every time I go to Washington, I return to that puddle.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Let me ask you, your editors and Marcel, your agent is here. I assume they're always aware of what they're going to get. And I don't know if the right-wing press is interested in these. What could you tell us about how your editors direct you or don't direct you, and what their reaction is when you come back with the pictures?
well, like I said at the beginning, Amy Pereira, who ran the MSNBC site, was very, very smart in, she always pushed me, kept pushing me to get more pictures, different looks on things. But then she never said, you have to get this moment. It was more, you know, she would talk about getting a feeling or the gist of that moment in the campaign. And it was a great luxury to work with her. You know, I've been very lucky and worked with, you know, editors that have always been supportive. You know, Jody Kwan at New York, Joanne Miltner at the New Yorker, Kathy Ryan at the New York Times Magazine. You know, they all give me what the story is about and then turn me loose, you know, without, you know, handcuffing me. They tell me what they want, but they never handcuff me to go get it. And it's, I've been very lucky to have amazing editors like that, to work with them.
That's in some ways unusual until you get to the stature that you have achieved. And it is a tribute to your editors that they're willing to go with you in publishing what you're doing. And obviously, these pictures tell much as anything, the story of our present political environment.
Mm.
White Noise is not out yet, correct?
Yeah.
Another titled publication that you're working on.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about how this came about? And obviously it's the compendium of the recent events, the White Noise, the White House full of noise.
So, yeah, once again, I want to thank Gerhard Steidl for taking a chance with this book. It's not a easy book. the pictures are ugly and awful and disturbing in a lot of ways, a lot of them. And I was very lucky that Claudia Rankin, the great poet and fiction writer, wrote the introduction. So I can never thank her enough for the words she put to the pictures. So after the election of 2016, in the spring of 2017, I started to want to look at why Donald Trump got elected and who his message was reaching. So I basically went from the White House to, through the people who helped make his policy, to the homes of the white nationalists, white supremacists, Nazis, whatever, Klan, who embraced his message. And that, I wanted to show the broad range of people in the respect of that they lived everywhere in the country. So many people want to think that this is just something that's in the South, or it is just in a certain state or in a certain economic class. But I went to, every part of the country and every economic level of people, and to show, all the ways. This is Stephen Miller, who went to Duke, a very prestigious university, and he came up with so many of the policies of Trump, the immigration policy, and if you look at him, he's a very reserved, meek person, in a way. And that's how I wanted to capture him. But also, I could never say this is like some of the pictures you saw from Germany, but just how he's holding his hands and how he looks is reminiscent of a couple shots.
No question.
This is Roger Stone in his apartment. He has been an advisor to Donald Trump for years, and he claims that he was a Nixon dirty trickster. He's been involved in the Republican politics, since the 70s. And he says he came up with the, build the wall and many of the other terms. He also copyrighted Stop the Steal. A lot of the slogans you hear, he's the person who came up with it. Yeah, this got cropped a little bit, but it actually looks better like that. But that's Steve Bannon, who was Trump's campaign manager at the very end, and has been you'd have to say, a white nationalist for many years. This is Milo, who was also part of Breitbart. And this was at a parade in Boston by a white nationalist group. This is one of the Fox News commentators. This is Laura Loomer. And this is actually what she wore to go and protest at the governor of California's residency about immigration. This is Jovi Valley, Jovi Vale, I'm sorry. And he, to me, he's a very important character in this book. There's only one picture of him, but he went from being a conservative to a college Republican to a MAGA to a Confederate, and now he's a Nazi, a neo-Nazi who travels the country recruiting people. And so he's gone through the whole spectrum. And this is at just a MAGA rally outside, you know, Trump Towers. There were many, you know, in the last few years. But
So-
I've ran into him all over the country at events.
So that poses, opens up another question. I follow you a great deal on social media, Instagram and Facebook. And it seems almost as if you get those pictures up immediately. And one day you seem to be in New York City, the next day in Washington, the next day on Midwest somewhere. I mean, you must be exhausted, but how have you managed all the logistics of what you're doing? I mean, you've set, in this book, you set a very definitive kind of project to find out who these people were who enabled Trump. And so you had to have an agenda. You have to work that out. And your logistics are quite remarkable, I think.
Well,
I don't-
you're very kind.
It's like you must be flying all the time.
I was before COVID, and you know, that, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of, this is New York. That's New York.
Yeah.
That was in June of 2017. This was organized by Gavin McInnes, you know, the leader at the time. He was leader of the Proud Boys. And this gentleman, you know, the whole thing was against Muslims, you know. And
You said gentlemen?
the law, as they feared, was coming to America. And that, but this is in a cemetery for Confederate Memorial Day. This is a family honoring the Confederate dead. You know, the Confederacy, the lost cause, it's like the gateway drug for white supremacy. This was Charlottesville, August 12th.
You were in the right place at the right time for that event, obviously.
It was a very sad day.
Anticipated.
It was incredibly sad. And once again, like January 6th, that what unfolded was not what I expected.
Somehow you into it. So these pictures of the Ku Klux Klan, how did you get there? If you don't mind asking, were you on assignment? How did you get their acceptance into these events?
I don't think I was ever accepted by any of the people, but for, you know, a lot of the people I'd contact, you know, in direct messages on Facebook or Twitter, and just say, you know, I want to come and photograph you. And I got turned down 9 out of 10 times on stuff. This is Richard Spencer, who at the time I took this picture was the leader of the term he used, the alt-right. He's a neo-Nazi, but, you know, he called it alt-right. But yeah, I would just contact people. A lot of times I go to rallies and meet people and then get them to agree to have me come and photograph them at their home. This was, I mean, Charlottesville, the Capitol were two of the saddest days I saw in this project, but this is the saddest day. This was Holocaust Remembrance Day in a little town in Arkansas. and this group of Nazis came to protest them.
What took you there? How did you anticipate this one?
I read that they were going to go and demonstrate it.
Oh,
And
boy.
I knew I had met the leader of this group before, and I'd photographed him before. And so I just went because I couldn't imagine. I mean, I just imagined how ugly it would be. And you know, and it was just,
Well, you have great intuition and great persistence, obviously, that you're
Yeah.
thinking about how to unfold this project, and then things happen that you don't anticipate, which is what a good storyteller does, what a good image maker does, who's shooting in what I call real world witness.
yeah. I mean, I
It
mean,
inevitably falls together because you want it to fall together.
yeah, I mean, I made lots of mistakes of going to things that were nothing, and made lots of pictures that were nothing. But you know, a lot of times my best pictures are luck, like this. You know, this is the lawyer for white supremacists, and you know, luckily he raised his hand, and the shadow just crept across his face like that.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's one of your gestures, one of your stylistic gestures, to use that hand,
yeah,
almost like a salute from a Nazi.
yeah,
Getting
yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, is just, you know, I encourage anybody who's working to just never assume you have the shot, to just keep assuming there'll be another shot if you stay, if you keep looking, you know. This was another really sad day. You know, this was a celebration for Hitler's birthday, which fell on Easter weekend, and they decided to drive around on a, you know, pontoon boat on a lake where people were recreating with a Nazi flag, you know.
Jesus.
Yeah, I just don't know what to say about that picture.
You said it all in the pictures.
This is in Boston. This guy is very influential in the white supremacy movement. He's been the mentor for the base for several of the most violent groups in the white supremacists. This is his bedroom.
And so obviously he invited you in, wanting to be photographed, I would suppose.
He was very resistant to being photographed, but you know, I just kept talking to him about taking the picture. Like when he met me, he would only meet me on the street. He was fully armed. There were two people I know across the street who were shadowing me, you know, to make sure I wasn't armed or whatever he thought I could be. So yeah, it was, you know. This is in Arkansas. They're doing a lighting ceremony. This is, you can see the gasoline dripping off of, or kerosene, whatever they used, dripping off of the swastika. And this is, you know, they're saying a prayer right before they light up the swastika. This was in Georgia. This was a very large gathering of Nazis and Klan on a private space. And there's that puddle again.
Now we're coming into some stuff that I think we've more recent, right?
Yeah, so this is January 6th.
Wow.
In Washington, D.C. This is how the day started, was the rally on a lot of people were on the Washington Monument lawn, and the main stage was on the Eclipse, which is right in the front of the White House, where Donald Trump spoke and told people to storm the Capitol.
There we
This
go.
is, yeah, a picture. This is actually an ad that they do, or a video that they do, where Trump appears very much like an Orwellian figure at the beginning of it. And then they show all his accomplishments. And then he comes out on stage just after this ad.
I think he learned something from the Nuremberg rallies, huh?
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is the flags became everything to these. They were a way that the different groups found each other, you know, but they also became, yeah, symbols for them, you know.
I'm going to move a little faster so we have time for our,
Okay.
well, here's the hero of the,
Sorry.
no. I'm just going to move faster so we have time for questions. He's the hero, obviously, of,
That's Officer Goodman.
and you're right in the right spot once again, for the right person in the right moment.
Well, I mean, the irony of this was I was inside the Capitol when they breached it. And they, you know, I'm standing here looking at these people coming down the hallway, and all of a sudden, two photographers that I have great respect for, war photographers or human rights photographers, Ron Haviv and Ashley Gilbertson, come in with them. And it was just like, oh, hey, how are you guys? You know, it was just so surreal the whole day. You know, this is the first breach, the window.
I think that these still pictures, though many of us have seen it over and over again on TV, but in a way, I think this will be the last, these pictures will be the lasting historical document, in a sense, that we will all come back to in for their iconic, for their iconicness as photographs, but also for their capture of the iconic actors in this theater of the absurd. This being a case in point. I mean, he is a figure that will remain in anybody's memory as long as we are alive and witnessed that event. But you've caught
Yeah,
it.
I mean, me personally, I didn't feel like I really captured the day very well. But I mean, I think photojournalism that day really, like what you're saying, really captured it better than anything.
I don't think there's any question.
The level of the scope and level and quality of pictures taken that day were incredible.
I'm just going to go through it.
Yeah.
You don't need, we know the event so well, I guess, but somehow you've just caught them in the most telling and most devastating ways, in any way that, you know,
Like I said before,
you can
all these
stop and look at it, you know, and contemplate it, which you can't do with the moving image.
Yeah.
Events.
Yeah, all of these people were like, it was like they were hypnotized, you know?
Oh, Jesus.
And they're just waiting for Trump to show up and tell them what to do.
Was this when they went into sequestered themselves, this picture in the Senate office building?
I'm sorry, what?
The picture here of Cruz, I think it's Cruz.
No, this is one of the
who got injured,
rioters who had been tear gassed, and he's wiping the tear gas off. Again, tear gas, tear gas.
Right.
And that's the end of the day.
While I switch back to our group, I'm going to stop the share and go back to the crowd, our lovely crowd, the gallery. Just, hi, everybody. I'm gonna open this up for questions from you all. I just want to ask Mark, what you feel, I mean, the role of social media in your imagery must be very important, not only for finding things, but for your distribution and to say what you have to say to your followers and to collect a bigger audience that probably reaches a tremendous number of followers. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think social media is really important for photographers. I embrace Instagram totally. I mean, I think it's really a proof sheet for photographers. It's a great way to show new projects, to show people where you're going, to connect with editors who wouldn't have known your work before. So I mean, political theater started out on Instagram. Nobody took a chance with those pictures till they kind of lived with them for a while on Instagram, you know, for a few months. And, you know, that's how MSNBC saw them. And so I know a lot of people are afraid of social media or their work being, you know, taken away from them. But I think I like Instagram, and I love seeing other people's work and seeing what they're working on and seeing how they're growing through a project. It's amazing. You know, people that I've never met, places I've never seen, you know, to be able to see things. It's great. It's a proof sheet of the world.
In the chat room, there's a question from Ray Ellman, who asks, what was your tipping point? When and how did quality organizations and press start recognizing the unique and powerful nature of your work?
Well, I've always been lucky. You know, when I came to New York, you know, very quickly, I lucked into, Kathy Ryan took a chance on me at the New York Times Magazine. And that work was all color based, you know, and it was, you know, I was very lucky, and I photographed, that's where the, you know, acts of charity started, was that work, you know, from her assignment.
I'm opening it to the questions from the audience. Anybody wants to speak up and ask a question, please do.
Well, I have one for Mark. Go ahead.
Richard Leslie, I think, talking. Go ahead.
No.
It's Stephen Perloff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stephen, go
So,
ahead.
Mark, I assume you started out in film and at some point switched to digital. And I wonder, at what point was that and how it affected the way you worked?
Yeah, it was probably about 2004 that I started doing digital, maybe 2006. And it was really hard. I'm not very technical. You know, I might not have even had a computer, you know, at that point. But I love digital now. I think it's, you know, digital is a real advantage for people. You see photographers grow leaps and bounds so quick because of digital. You know, when I was shooting, you know, I started out in, you know, negative film. And then when I came to New York, I had to learn chromes, which was very limited in a lot of ways. It was beautiful. You could make beautiful pictures, but at a certain point at night, or you go in an office and it was just, unless you had $1,000 of lighting with you, you know, it was really difficult, you know? So, you know, that's the magic of digital, that you can, you know, walk outdoors and walk indoors and, you know, still work with a quality of light, you know? So it was about 2006. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Other questions? Just speak up. Go ahead.
At the Capitol, were you wearing a gas mask?
I wasn't. I just had an N95 mask, and perhaps that was the most thing I was afraid of, was getting COVID. Being in the hallways, being packed in the hallways with people, with hundreds of people who weren't wearing masks, who were just yelling and screaming at you or at the police. But I wasn't wearing a gas mask ever. I probably should have, and I think photographers should all really be careful and do things like that. I just didn't.
Mark, with the political climate changing somewhat, what's next?
That's a great question. And like after the 2016 election, I'm have really been taking the last month trying to think where I'm going to go, you know, and what I want to do. So, and I don't have an answer yet. If you have one, can you send it to me?
You want
right
me to send you some more information?
now? Thank you. How
You're
are you
always
doing?
welcome to come south.
It's so nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Mark. And hello, Marcel.
Yeah.
Marcel, you want to talk a minute about where he's going next?
You know what? He's a genius. I'm lucky to have him. He thanked me and thanked my wife, and he was kind that. But Mark is an unbelievable, hard-working photographer I've ever worked with. He's an energized bunny. He's keep reinventing himself, and the credit goes to him and all his hard work. But yeah, you know, it's a challenging time to figure out what's next, and I think he said it perfectly. He's trying to figure out where he wants to go, and we'll see. And we're here to help him and figure things out with him.
For those who don't know, Marcel is the head of Redux Agency.
I was just thinking, good luck on that. How are you going to make liberals dramatic?
Well, they step on their own feet.
That is the challenge.
You'll do feet where they're stepping on their own feet, you see.
That's it.
Hands.
When you're talking about charity, I was glad to hear you mention Fink's name, because that's the first guy that went off in my mind. But he doesn't play with the wall the way you do, you know. And I was just wondering if, you know, this mise en scène, far inside, back outside, very complex. And I was just wondering if you think about that much, you know, in terms of, maybe you said you're influenced by cinema. I'm thinking of all the ways in which they play with that fourth wall back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but I know when I use the flash that it can make people become more animated sometimes, if that's what you're asking, and that you can. I mean, it was like what I was saying with acts of charity. Those people expect to be photographed. You know, someone like Trump or Biden, these people expect to be photographed, you know. So, you know, you're always working that angle. But I don't think I'm quite following what you're asking.
I think people see things from a broad point of view as normal. And when you move in close and tight, it becomes abnormal anyway. So we're kind of used to why the 24 minutes. So,
Breaking up. Richard, you're breaking up. Somehow I can't hear you.
oh, sorry, I'm not wearing a headphone. Yeah, I was just saying that most people do define like a normal scene on a broad scope. And when you move in close and tight, it becomes unusual and you get to focus on that. But I guess what I'm wrestling with, it's not so much a question for you as it in many ways.
You're breaking up. I think the next question is Stephanie Berger has posed on the chat. You want to just go ahead and say it, Stephanie?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you. Just a minute.
Hi. I'm
Hi.
Mark. I want to say hi to Marcel as well. I wanted to
Hey,
ask
Stephanie.
hi. I wanted to ask about the flash, Mark, because you are like a master of lighting at this point, and you're in so many chaotic situations. And I know, is it like just one flash that you're using and you're just placing it and getting it right? Or is there sometimes slaved lights? Because it always looks like there's more than just one light source. And it's like a cinematic thing that you're doing, but you're doing it on the fly and it's so fast. And I know there's chaos everywhere. It's just amazing how you get that look. And is it, are you using more than one flash? Are they small? Are they off the camera? Are you, slaving with multiple flashes that you stick like in the corner on the floor or something? How do you do that?
Well, I use radio triggered flash. So on my camera, I have the transmitter and then the flash, gets that. And so, yeah, I move the flash around with my hand. I wish my hands were longer at times, but other times I'll just set the flash in some place, or I'll ask, like in the audience, I'll ask somebody to hold the flash and then just move around, and of course the person gets very bored of that quickly and that, but but I try, and if there's another light source, to incorporate that into the frame. At times I have brought two flashes to an event and put one in a stationary place, and but they're all triggered with a remote radio slave.
Well, you've mastered that. It's amazing, Mark. It's beautiful work.
Well,
There's
you're
another
too kind.
question from Oscar Castillo. You want to ask it, Oscar? Is he still here? The question is, Mark, and all the.
Yeah,
Hello?
I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead and pose the question.
Yeah, I would like to know like the experience from Mark in the other way, like after seeing so many people radicalizing, so many people getting more extremist, have you seen as well, have you seen, Mark, and congratulations, amazing work. Have you seen some people coming the other way, like people regretting the racism, people regretting their extremist position and coming back into something more working for inclusion, working against racism, working for unification again?
Yeah. I mean, in the book, there are some, at the end, there's TM Garrett, who runs an organization out of Memphis to help get people out of the Klan, out of gangs, out of Aryan Nation. A big thing he's been doing is helping people get the tattoos they have. Many of the people get these symbols, tattooed on them. and then they can't go to the beach after they've left the group.
They go to the beach. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, you know, they can't, you know, just be around their, you know, whatever. And so he is helping them get the tattoos removed and that, and also counseling them and helping them understand why they got into the group and how to get out of it. One kid I photographed getting some of his tattoos removed, he had been in an Aryan group in prison. He went into prison when he was 18. He worked his way up in the ranks of the group till he was the head of the state that in the prison he was in. And so he had like all the different levels of, you know, going up the ladder in the group. And he decided before he left prison that he wanted to leave the group. And they jumped him one day and took a knife and tried to cut that tattoo off of him.
Jesus.
And so, but he had like a picture of Hitler on his chest and a swastika, and all of these were done in the prison. And so it's taken a year for him to have these slowly covered up and removed. So yeah, you know, there are organizations like that that are working very hard to do that. And I mean, that's something I've tried to do with the work, is to show that this isn't something that's hidden, that, you know, it's everywhere, that it's your neighbors, you know, and we got to look at it directly, you know, and not think it's just going to go away.
How about 2 more questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hey, Mark. What do you think about like political theater being portrayed best as colored or black and white?
Say that again.
What do you
Should
think?
it have been color or black and white? Is
Yeah.
that
What represents political theater best, color or black and white?
well, how I conceived it, you know, mimicking film noir and Citizen Kane and that kind of stuff. I felt it had to be black and white, and to take it away from the reality that color would present it in. You know, I wanted to show the raw grab of power these people, you know, want, that they strive for. You know, I mean, I was editorializing when I took these pictures, and I didn't feel like I could editorialize as well in color, because you'd be distracted by that, where I could minimize it and you know, sift it down to the essence of their idea of power, you know.
But sort of the color works in a different way in the charity pictures, in that it dramatizes the opulence itself of objects, of the clothing, of the makeup, and all the things. And I think that book would probably work in black and white, but works rather uniquely in color because of how color describes what's there in terms of objects and things like that, which isn't always part of the political drama. I don't know if you agree with that. But.
I totally agree with that, you know. Yep.
Okay, one more question, dear people.
Hey,
2 more.
Mark.
Sure. How are you?
It's great to see you.
Sorry about your father.
Thanks, Mark. I was wondering if you had ever thought, you've been sort of in the mix with people, you know, so tight with people. Have you ever photographed nature? Like Fink did the praying mantis pictures, just as like a step back, just to kind of regain your focus, and also it's something so important to all of us. And I somehow I thought I would think you would actually be really great at it.
Mm,
Maybe that should be the next project,
yeah,
next chapter.
yeah,
Nature and animals.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
climate change,
yeah. Well, you've done such great work on it, so it's something to think about.
no, you'd be great at it, Mark.
So,
Like Freelanders, alligators.
There you go.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of Freelander in you.
Well, he's the master of dimension.
It's the master of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, one more question.
Hi. Actually, I already posted on the chat room. I'll just ask again. So when you photography the people in the Nazi group, and then when you're shooting something horrified, how you stay calm and stay with this group of people, and as a witness, as a viewer, also as an artist there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very tough question, a very good question. I don't know if I can really answer it. I mean, yeah, watching them when the group was remembering the Holocaust, and what they were doing and saying was just, I mean, I remember just walking away and having to decompress for a couple days after that. And it just being so ugly, but it's my job. That's my job, is to look at things, to try and show what I view as the truth and present it so that other people can maybe hate it as much as I might, or understand it in the way I'm showing it to them. And it's my job, to do that. So, I feel really lucky that I have the platform I do in this profession, and I just feel it's really important to show what's out there and not to hide from the things that are out there in this world. But
Mark,
thank you for your question.
We're going to close, but I just want to tell the audience that, before we started, I asked Mark about how he got into all of it. And basically, he's a self-taught image maker, but he said, I practice all kinds of things. And I'm saying that to our students, that nothing substitutes, but keep shooting, keep practicing, keep looking, keep editing. And you work through and you find your style, your point of view. And in Mark's case, I think he's very different than some of the photographers he admires, Friedlander or Fink or others, or let's say Tina Barney or whatever, who did The Rich, or Marion Post-Walcott, in that he really does take a position. He's not just sort of trying to be present, but omnipotent. And he's not also trying to make fun of. I think he's combined all those things into his own unique style. And somebody asked what he felt about it being copied. And like anybody, it's kind of flattery, but you can't copy an innate style that Mark has. And I want to thank you and tell you come back anytime. And all of you, I hope you will join us for future lectures, and you'll find all the sources on our website. And it's really been a great night. And I think hopefully this imagery is not possible again, meaning the subject. Hopefully we are looking to a different kind of political theater.
Yeah, let's hope that we all come out of COVID safe and well, and that this year is, you know, a better year. So thank you so much,
Sure,
Charles.
Mark. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank all the staff, SVA and the students.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks SVA. Thanks Charles for thinking of Mark. It was wonderful, and thanks for the
Marcel, thank
invite.
you.
And we're here if you need anything.
Thank you. We will take you up on that.
All right, take care.
All the best, everybody.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Mark.